I welcome you once again in this presentation where I'll be showing you how to prepare costing statements and profit statements using absorption costing. I'll use our same example, the very example I used under marginal costing. It's the same example I'm going to use to show you how to prepare an operating statement using absorption costing. My name is Senior Hannington, your accounting tutor. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel. Don't forget to share my videos with those other friends. As long as you believe that the content on my channel benefits your friends, don't forget to comment, don't forget to like, and so on. Now, what is absorption costing? Now, when we talk about absorption costing, this is a costing system where all production overheads, I've said where all production overheads are absorbed into production. Where all production overheads are absorbed into production. When I talk about production overheads, just know that I'm referring to both the variable production overheads and the fixed production overheads. We are going to see how to deal with that. Solo Limited makes and sells a single product, the following data relate to periods 1 to 4. A variable cost per unit, the selling price per unit has been given to 55. Then the fixed cost per period is 6,000. Normal activity is 500 units, and production and sales for the 4 periods are as follows. Remember, we have period 1, period 4. So that's our data, sales, production. There were no opening stocks at the start of the period. We are going to see how we can prepare an operating statement for periods 1 to 4 using absorption costing. But of course, I need to show you how to remember under absorption costing, we value our inventories at the full cost per unit. Don't forget. Whereas under marginal costing, we said that we value inventories at the marginal cost per unit. So today we are looking at absorption costing. Then we are looking at absorption costing. As I've told you that this is an accounting system. If you want to note, it's an accounting system in which all production overheads, i.e. variable and what? And fixed. Which all production overheads, i.e. variable and fixed, are charged in which all the production overheads, i.e. fixed and variable, are charged to cost units. Charged to cost units. Charged to cost units or the products. Charged to cost units of the product. So this system does not distinguish between fixed and variable cost of production. No. Of course, you find that under marginal costing. So under this method, the inventories are valued at full cost per unit. Inventories are valued at the full cost per unit. How do we come up with the full cost per unit? What makes the full cost per unit? Let me show you briefly that. How to come up with the full cost per unit, the things you have to consider, the different cost elements you have to consider when it comes to the full cost per unit. So to get the full cost per unit, of course, we have to get the direct materials. We add the direct labor, direct expenses, if any. We bring our variable production costs. Then now we also bring the fixed production costs. What we get is the full cost per unit. And when we are using absorption costing, we have to value the units at their full cost. So that is absorption costing. So let us see how we can come up with the operating statement for periods 1 to 4 using absorption costing. However, we need to know now what is our full cost per unit, because the full cost per unit is not given in the question. So now it's due to arrive at the full cost per unit. Let's see how we can arrive at that. Let's see how we can arrive at the full cost per unit. Remember, you've been given the variable cost per unit. Then you also have the fixed cost per period. Normal activity is 500 units. Now to arrive at your full cost per unit, of course, we have said that we have to get all the variable plus the fixed production overheads to come up with our full cost per unit. So the full cost per unit in this case arrive at our full cost per unit. Full cost per unit. Of course, we have been given the variable cost per unit. We have been given the variable cost per unit in the question as 30. The variable cost per unit is 30, but remember, we have to add the fixed cost per unit. Now, when it comes to the fixed cost per unit, under absorption costing, of course, we have to include the fixed cost per unit in the cost per unit computation. If you have to come up with the full cost per unit, we have to add the fixed cost per unit. But to get that fixed cost per unit, of course, we need to know the absorption rate. And in this case, our absorption rate is output. Remember, the fixed cost per period, we have $6,000 as the fixed cost per period. But this was based on a normal activity level of how many units? Let's see this. Normal activities, 500 units. So they are the budgeted 500 units for each period. So to come up with a fixed cost per unit, we have to get the 6,000 units divided by these 500. We have to get the 6,000 divided by the 500 units to get the budgeted fixed cost per unit. 6,000 by 500, this is 12. This gives us 12. So we get our 30 plus 12, and this gives us 42. So this 42 is our full cost per unit, and this is what we are going to use under absorption costing. We get the variable cost per unit. This was given in the question. Sometimes they will give you direct materials, labor, expenses, variable production cost per unit. You just add and get your variable cost per unit. But in this question, we already have a 30. So it was just a matter of adding the fixed cost per unit to come up with your full cost per unit under absorption costing. The full cost per unit, sometimes it will be given, but in this case, it has not been given. But they have given us the normal activity level of 500 units and then the fixed cost per period. So meaning that each unit, the company had budgeted to incur $12 when it comes to the fixed cost. Because if I'm to incur 6,000 per period, and in each period I budgeted that I'll be producing 500 units, then it means that each unit will cost 12 when it comes to fixed costs. That is our full cost per unit. So now we can go ahead and prepare our operating statements for each period. So this was part B question. Operating statements for periods 1, 4. Operating statements for periods 1, 1, 4. So we have period 1, period 2, period 3, period 4. Come on, $. So that's what we have. Yeah, so that's our profit statement. As you know, start with our sales, don't forget. I advise you to first watch the other video about marginal costing, because you'll see the hint on how to come up with the different items in our statement. But of course, we started with sales, and sales equals to our units sold times the selling price. For those of you who have not yet watched the other first video, to get sales, you get the unit sold times the selling price per unit. So you'll have to look at each and every period. You have the sales units, 500 period 1, 400 period 2, 550, 450. Then the selling price is 55 per unit. So your sales revenue figures will not change. They will be the same as those under marginal costing. So here we have 27,500. This was 22,000. Period 3, that was 30, 50. Then period 4, it's 24, 750. So simply get your units sold, the sales units times the unit selling price. Then you get your sales. Then after that, we have to less the cost of sales. So this time we don't use marginal cost of sales, we just say cost of sales less the cost of sales. So we less the cost of sales, and under here we have our opening inventory. And remember, in period 1, there was no opening inventory according to the question. Just take you back to the question for you to see that. Take you briefly back to the question. We are told that there were no opening stocks at the start of period 1. So I'll just put 0 or a dash in period 1 to show that there was no opening stock. Then we have to add the production costs. And the production costs. Production costs equals to units produced times your full cost per unit. And this full cost per unit is 42 pounds. We have computed that. In my introduction, I showed you how to come up with the full cost per unit, whereby we added the variable cost per unit. We added them with the fixed cost per unit to come up with 42. The fixed cost per unit was 0. So what you'll do, simply get the units produced. Just take you back. Production 400 times 42, 500 times 42, 450 times 42, and the 500 times 42 to come up with your production costs. So when you get the production units, the units produced times 42, In period 1, we get 21,000. Period 2, it is 21,000. Period 3, we have 18,900. Then period 4, we have 21,000. Get that? Remember, we have it's just a matter of getting your production units, the units produced, times your full cost per unit. Remember, we are using absorption costing. Yeah, then you get the production costs. Then, of course, you have to list the closing stock or the closing inventory. Less. Closing inventory. How do we get a closing inventory? Closing inventory. Here we get the opening plus the production units less the sales units, the units sold. Then opening inventory plus production units minus sales units. Then what you get, you multiply that with by the full cost per unit to come up with your closing inventory in terms of money. Let me take you back, then I show you how to do that. So sales, we had computed some of, I showed you how to come up with the opening inventory. Of course, the opening inventory, if it's not given for the first period, we don't have, then this is closing inventory. I want to show you how to get the closing inventory. Now, in period 1, opening inventory was not given, so there was no opening inventory, but we have sales of 500 and production was 500. So what you produced all was sold. So in period 1, there is no closing inventory. I'll just put a dash. The closing inventory of period 1 becomes the opening of period 2, but because closing inventory in period 1 is 0, then in period 2, there is also nothing. However, in period 2, there is closing inventory because you produced 500 units, but you only managed to sell 400, so you have 100 units. You have to value these units at 42 per unit. So 100 times 42 pounds, this will give you 4,200. So this is the closing inventory for period 2, the monetary value of that closing inventory. That closing inventory of period 2 becomes the opening of period 3. So these are 100 units, but these are 100 units from period 2. Remember, the sales will be minused from our formula. What is the formula I gave you? So 100 units opening inventory. You've produced 450, meaning that you have 550 units available for sale. Then you sell 550. So all the units available for sale, all those units have been sold. So no closing inventory in period 3. However, in period 4, you produced 500 units and sold 450. So here you have closing inventory units of 50 units. And you have to value each unit at 42 pounds. giving us how much? What is 50 times 42? 50 times 42, that's how much? Is it 2000? 2000 what? 50 times 40. That is 2100. So your closing inventory here, 2100. So closing inventory in period 2 is 4200, then period 4 is 2100. In the other periods, you don't have closing inventory. Let's take this our operating statement. Here we don't have closing inventory. Period 2 it is 4200. Period 3, here there is no opening inventory. Then period 3, the opening inventory is the closing inventory of period 2, and that is 4200. Period 3, there is no closing inventory because all what was available for sale was sold. Then period 4, there is closing inventory of 2100. So that is your opening inventory plus the production costs and then the closing inventory. But now one thing you need to know under absorption costing is that there is always over or under absorption. There is always over or under absorption of production overheads. So we have to show that over or under absorption and absorbed overheads. Over or under absorbed overheads. Please, I'm going to come up with a working note for that. So we check on the note, okay? Note. Let me come up with that. On the next page. Over stock and absorb the fixed overheads. We have period 1. Of course, the over or under absorbed fixed overheads, it's as a result of production, that when we are producing, remember the fixed costs are determined in advance. They are budgeted, but sometimes what you had budgeted may completely be different from the actual fixed costs that are actually incurred. So as a result, of course, there will be that under or over absorb the fixed overheads. And still, this may also be as a result of production budgeted being different from what we had planned. So there is likely to be over or under absorption. Let us try to see how we can come up with this. So we have 4 different periods, period 1 to 4. Period 1, period 2, 3, period 4. We have the plan D output. The planned output, the normal activity per period, that was 500. Then we have the actual, okay, the actual output. Let me use actual output. The actual output. Now the actual output, let's see the actual output. Period 1 it's 500, period 2 it's 500, 50 500. This is 500, 500, 450, and then 500 in period 500 in period 4. Now we need to look at the difference. We need to look at the difference in the difference between the planned output and the actual output. Remember, we only do this under absorption costing. In marginal costing, there is nothing like overall and absorbed fixed production overheads. So here, production equals to output. Planned output equals to actual output. Now, whenever planned output equals to the actual output, the difference in units. There is no any difference because planned is the same as actual, the same with period 2. Now under period 3, the planned output is 500, but the actual output is 450. So here we have a difference of 50. We see that our actual output is less than the planned output. Then period 4, the same. 500 planned equal actual 500. Now, when you look at period 3, you will see that we have a difference. We have a difference of 50. The planned output was 500, but the actual output is 450. Now, what does this indicate? This indicates that in period 3, the overheads absorbed were less. Okay? The overheads absorbed are less, simply because we had budgeted 500 units, but now our actual output is 450. So there is an underestimate. There is an underestimate. So you see that when it comes to the fixed costs will be understated in period 3, simply because our actual output of 450 is less than the planned output. So I'll just multiply by the fixed cost per unit, which is 12 pounds. But of course, in these other periods, there is nothing. But in period 3, 50 times 12, 50, that is 600. Now, this 600 in period 3 represents under absorption or under absorbed overheads. Under absorbed overheads. Simply because the actual production is less than the planned output, so less or lower overheads were charged, okay, in period 3 compared to the budgeted fixed overheads of 60,000. Remember, our budgeted fixed cost per period was 6,000, but now you'll see that because in period 3 we are producing less, we are going to charge less. Now, less was charged to period 3. So there is under absorbed overheads, and the treatment of this 600, this should be debited to our profit and loss statement. So what you do, you come back here to your operating statement. Our operating statement here, in period 1, there is nothing. Period 2, but period 3, you bring that 600, and you also add it. In other words, you increase the cost of sales. It's an expense, in other words, You increase the cost of sales. Then after that, you can get your cost of sales figure, as we are going to see. If it was over absorption, then it means that more fixed overheads are being charged, so the over absorption will be deducted. In other words, it will reduce your cost of sales, or you can take it as an income. There are two ways of how you can deal with that, the treatment. So period 1, here we have 21,000. Then period 2, 21,000 minus 4,200, that is 16,800. Period 3, there is no closing inventory, but you have a 4,200 plus 18,900 plus 600, giving you 23,700. Then period 4, 21,000 minus 2,100. This is 18,900. So sales minus cost of sales, of course, you get your gross profit. When I get the gross profit. In this case, it will be a gross profit stroke net profit. Why? Because there is nothing else to minus. We don't have the non-production costs to minus for you to get the net profit. So our net profit still will be the same as the gross profit. So gross profit stroke net profit. I can use net profit, I can use gross profit, because this is the final figure we have. So in period 1, you will get the sales minus this cost of sales of 21,000, and that will be how much? That will be 6,500. Period 2, the sales 20,000 minus 16,800, that is 5,400. Period 3, that is 6,550. Then period 4, it's 8,000. It's fine. It should be fine. This is 5,850. So that is our profit statement. and absorption costing. Yeah, so those are the profits. You can compare them with the profits under marginal costing, and you see that these profits are not the same. In period one, they are the same. Why? Because production was equaling to sales. Whenever production equals to sales, then the two costing systems will produce the same profit, figure. There is a part of the question, one of the parts of the question. I think it's part 3. Let's try to have a look at this and see. Comment briefly on the results obtained in each period and in total by the two systems. Comment briefly on the results obtained in each period and in total by the two systems. Let's try to comment briefly on the results obtained in each period and these two systems. Period 1. Period 2. Period 3. And period 4. We want us to come up with a comment about the profits of each period and the two costing systems. So we have the marginal costing profits. Period 1, this was 6,500. You can check. Period 2, it's a 4,000. Period 3, 7,750. Then period 4, it's 5,250. Then the absorption costing profits. Period 1, this is 6,500. Period 2, so these are the profits. Let us try to get the difference in these profits and we see. This will help you coming up with a comment. The difference in profits. Difference in profits. No difference. Period 2, the difference is 1,100. Period 3, difference is 1,000. Period 2, the difference is 600. Now, how can you comment? Of course, we need to put into consideration the units produced and the units sold when we are coming up with a comment. So, comment, just something brief that we can put. Brief comment. Of course, we can say that in period 1, remember production equal to sales. Production equal to sales. And there are no stock movements. In other words, there is no closing stock. And there are no stock movements. And there are no stock movements. So the profits are the same in both systems. So when production equals to sales, the two costing systems will always provide the same profit figure. In period 2, in period 2 and 4, why 4? In period 2 and 4, you will see that now production exceeds what? Your production exceeds sales in period 2 and 4. You see production exceeds what? Exceeds sales. Here we are producing 500, we sell 400. 500, we sell 450. Now, whenever production exceeds sales, absorption costing reports a higher profit figure. In period 2 and 4, production exceeds sales, and absorption costing reports a higher profit, reports higher profits, reports higher profits, reports higher profits. But why? Because fixed costs, are deferred. Because fixed costs are deferred in the stock valuations. Are deferred in the stock valuations. How? For example, in period 2, let us look at period 2. In period 2, stock increases by 100 units. Let us try to check that. Stock increases by 100 what? Stock increases by 100 units. You see, you're producing 400, you're producing 500, but you sell only 400. So your closing inventory is there now, 100 units. But now this closing inventory, the fixed costs in the closing inventory are deferred in period 3. That closing inventory of period 2 becomes an opening inventory of period 3. So it is deferred. And remember, there are fixed costs in that closing inventory. So those fixed costs are deferred in the next period. So in period 2, the cost of sales figure will be small. That's a higher profit value. So for example, in period 2, stock increased by 100 units, thus resulting in fixed costs of pounds 1,200. That is getting the 100 units times 12 of our fixed cost per unit being deferred. As an expense. In period what? In period 3. That is according to absorption costing. So therefore, absorption what? Absorption costing profits exceed exceed marginal costing profits by 1,200. As you can see, this is the difference in profits. You see, let me use different color for you to be able to observe that. So you can see that difference. The difference in profits, marginal costing and absorption costing, the 1,200. So it's simply because of the inventory, the closing inventory, the differences are in inventory, those inventory movements. Remember, we value inventory using different values. Under absorption costing, we use full cost, and under marginal costing, we use marginal cost per unit. So the difference in profits in period 2 is simply because of the differences in the valuation of the closing inventory, and here we are using full cost, and because we have 100 units as our closing inventory, when we value these at 12 pounds per unit, of course we get that 1,200. So the difference is simply because of the valuation of these inventories. What happened in period 3? You see, in period 3 now, marginal costing reports a higher profit. Let us talk about period 3 briefly. Period 3. When sales exceed production, uh, marginal costing reports higher profits. Marginal costing reports higher what? Marginal costing reports higher profits, i.e. in period what? I.e. in period 3. You see, in period 3, to take you back to the question briefly, in period 3, sales exceed production. Whenever sales exceed production, absorption costing profits will be lower than those of marginal costing. So that's what you can put on that part 3. That's the comment. Allow me to stop here. In our next presentation, we shall still discuss about something different, but don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to comment. Don't forget to share. Thank you.